It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Friday, April 4th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, do not follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. So today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have the Wednesday message word study and, of course, commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. Whew. All right, everyone, how are you doing? And yes, it is Friday. The weekend is upon us. Don't forget, like yesterday, we have Q&A Thursday every single week, so get those questions ready. Send them to me whenever you can. And if you haven't yet, please leave a like and comment to build our community. I'm just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. This week's Sunday message title is God's thoughts and our thoughts are different. God left them alone being deceived. Do things after checking God's will. All right. So yes, guys, it's Friday. And the reason why I'm speaking a little bit quiet is because it's like 2:15 in the morning right now. And I didn't realize that I forgot to record. I'm like, wait a second, I'm forgetting something. And then I realized I have to record. So yeah, it is 2:15 in the morning. It is Friday, early pre-dawn. And I hope that you guys will be able to get this all on time. Well, it's only 2:15, so I will be able to get this uploaded and ready to go too. But the weekend is upon us. It's the first weekend of April. And it's kind of interesting because when we meet, when we have the Monday podcast again, it's like that's the first week of April, which means the first week is already done. So for me, I'm just like, you know what? First week, I'm probably gonna take a nice drive this weekend and just have a 1 day break. Go drive somewhere and come back. And I don't know. For me, driving is a therapy for me too. So it's something I really enjoy. And even though I'm sitting I'm basically sitting the entire time driving for 2, 3, 4 hours, the thing that's kind of cool is that the car is moving, which kind of makes me feel like, I'm still doing something even though I'm not really doing anything. But it's been, it's going to be a great and good weekend. I hope that all of us will really have that time together as we prepare for the Million Man Ministry. And, I'll tell you something funny that happened to me today is you guys know that I'm the only guy and there's 6 other girls in IMD and stuff like that too. And right now I'm totally not, this is not a knock on girls. It's just that I'm surrounded by them and guys and girls are just so different. So, we plan an outing. For instance, someone's birthday is today and they want to go, they're planning what should we do? And because they're all girls, it's like, let's go look at the cherry blossoms and walk around and take pictures. Let's go on a picnic, right? And it's it's kind of these fruity things that as a guy, I don't really have a ton of interest in. For me is, if I were to take a guy, you'd be like, you know what? I want to go to a monster truck rally. I want to shoot some guns. I want to play some sports. I want to watch UFC or American football. I want to go to an arcade. I want to eat barbecue. I want to drive a car really fast or something like that. Well, actually, I kind of sound Texan, right? But it's kind of just how guys are. We're just different. And it's very, very interesting just to see the difference between guys and girls. And I can see it even more prevalent because I'm just I see exactly what they want to do. And it's so different from my thoughts. And think about this. Human beings, guys and girls, we are all human beings. And yet our thoughts are so different. And what's even more interesting is going to be this week's message is if even the same species of human beings where the genders, male and female, are that different, how much more would God be different than we are? Isn't that true? Like how different God is, and I think it's something that we do need to realize more and more, right? That God is that much different than us, and we have to be those people that, as the message was saying, that hey, think about the environment God comes from. There's no day or night. So it's not like the pre-dawn time is literally the morning, because heaven doesn't have a heaven doesn't have a night. There's always sun going out. So it's something very interesting to take a look at things from God's perspective. So it's me, and I'm having a very, very good time in Korea. And I would say I'm having a really, really deep time too, just kind of realizing more and more about myself, my faults, and my thinking pattern. And like I had a couple of really good conversations today, and like I met a good friend from Malaysia, and we're just having a good conversation, and we're talking about evangelism. And one of the things that we were realizing is, when Sasi talks about this million man ministry, one of the reasons why it's so hard for us to really grasp a million, because we we are looking to do a million the way that we have always been doing evangelism, which is basically going out on campus, finding people, bringing them straight to Bible study and stuff, right? And when we look at this, it's going to be pretty obvious to us that that is something that uh, that's something that really, it's not something that I can't see a million people like coming to Providence in that way. And I think one of the hard parts is going to be is for us to grasp how the million people are going to come. You know what I mean? Like, have you guys ever had that where in church you might have some program? It's like more of a community effort. It's not really like for like direct evangelism. And then, we were talking about, sometimes, everyone is on the same page. Everyone is got the same purpose of why they're doing a certain this like common occurring event or something like that. But then somewhere along the line, like everyone's on board in the beginning, but then somewhere in the middle, someone's going to start asking the question is, how much fruit? How many people have passed? How many people are evangelized? And the program that you made, which was once originally for building a community or getting a good name for Providence, turns, like it turns into an actual like, hey, why aren't you guys evangelizing? And you see that, and I think it's something that cannot be helped. Meaning, what leaders look for and their concept of evangelism is really, really based upon how many people actually pass. And what Sunsim, the way that Sunsim even talks to us, he kind of talks to us in that way. Meaning, it's like, hey, if you're a head leader, you got to do this well, you have to do that well, kind of thing, right? And you have to evangelize a lot of people, or you get replaced. And that's a scary thing to think about, where Sunsim says that like directly in a message. And I was thinking myself too, is like, yeah, that's so true. That really, really is so true, that sometimes we're so stuck on one part of the message where Sunsim tells us something that it becomes really easy for our thoughts to go really far in that direction, right? And when it goes really far in that direction, what happens? We're only looking at one method or one way. And when we look at now how internet ministry is such a vital part of this history, one thing we're going to recognize and realize is that we need to embrace internet ministry in a different way than we do regular ministry. Like, we really have to start thinking about it in a different way, because as long as we keep thinking about it in the same way, I don't think it's going to work. And if leaders are focused so much only on like doing Bible studies and passing people, then the churches are going to grow. They're not going to grow any faster than they are right now. But it's kind of grasping and understanding that there's going to be a twofold effort, and part of it's going to be internet ministry. And the hard part is that it's such a new ministry for all of us. We're not quite sure exactly how it's supposed to work. Do you know what I mean? We're just not quite sure about it. And it's something that I looked at and I was like, oh, that's so interesting, right? How it's like this. But yeah, I was really, I was really thinking like, yeah, how are we going to make this work if, so let's just say leaders are so into the Bible studies and passing people, which I think is very important. So I'm not saying it's not supposed to be done, but if there's nothing involved in the other side, which I think that's going to be the bulk of the million people. The bulk of the million people is going to be internet. Like if they were looking for a million, I would say like 90 something percent will be done by the internet. That's how big and that's how important it's really going to be. It's like 90 something percent, right? And when I looked at it, I was like, oh, that's so like, how else are we going to reach out to that many people? The way we do it with individuals going out and meeting people, that takes a long time. It takes forever, right? But we do need to really think about this at another level. So yeah, it's just a lot of things that I've been thinking about, a lot of things that I was looking at, and I'm really, really hoping that I'm really, really hoping that, well, here's another issue that like say foreign countries deal with more than like the big three Asian countries is. Most countries don't have enough manpower to split up between internet ministry and regular ministry. Like there's just not enough manpower for that. So you have to choose, kind of some churches would have to choose between one or the other. And that's not an easy thing also. But there is the significance and importance of the million man ministry that we're going for. And I think it's something that we really have to like open our hearts towards and get our hearts to really think about much more clearly and more deeply too. So yeah, ministry is a big, like that's one thing I was talking to, we were talking about how are we going to make evangelism work? And that was one of the topics we were talking about. I was talking to another friend, also another leader here in Korea. And it was really deep because like they would tell me what they're like the reason why they have a hard time. And we were talking about it and we're like, having a hard time like to overcome something, number one, it's like there's levels of it. And one, like, of course, an easy level is like getting over difficulties about yourself, right? Like that's something a little bit easier, right? It's not something that is like shocking to your faith. But we were discussing like what is the hardest one like to overcome? If we really want to do better, what is the hardest one to overcome? And we both came up with the same answer: is if you're hurt by or misunderstand something. Like that is the core, right? So if you have a misunderstanding, if you have something that like maybe you think is unfair, or maybe Sunseem rebuked you for the wrong reason, or just like there's a ton of different reasons that come out for this. If that type of stuff comes out, the part that's really interesting is that's we were talking like that is the thing that would make your faith recovery the hardest. Is when it has to do with the core. Everything else on the outside is not going to be that big. So when you think about it, think about yourselves too. And what is the thing that makes it the most difficult for you to recover in your faith? And a lot of times you're going to realize that there's some, like the reason why you're suffering for such a long time is because there's some misunderstanding you have with something. Or there's something that you don't see that you should have seen from before, right? And when we understand this is where we're going to be like, oh, this is why it's that difficult. This is why I'm struggling about this. This is why I'm struggling about that, right? And I think it's something that we all have to really think about when it comes to understanding the core of our issues and our problems. Like even me, as me and this leader were discussing, we're just talking, and I thought to myself what is my bigger issue? right? And of course, for me, there's a mixture of multiple different things on why I was struggling or why I would go through big struggles and stuff during pre-dawn. No, sorry, not pre-dawn, during COVID. And of course, there's a couple things. Like I would say so many things played a part in it. And, one of them being is like, I think there's something that we do need to recognize also is sometimes you're doing something for a long time and then you get so stressed and you're so like, constantly in stress, constantly like going through, and that stress makes it really, really difficult for you to overcome because you're stressed. It's got nothing to do with your faith. It's got nothing to do with anything else. But think about it. When you're super stressed, you're going through a lot of difficulties, and some people get sick. Like I know one friend of mine already on their second surgery. And for me, I was like, that in itself would take its toll on someone's mentality. And we were talking like, sometimes when you're not doing well, sometimes the issue, the actual issue is physical, meaning you are going through pain and suffering because of your body, or what's that thing we just said? Like my friend just went through like 2 surgeries, right? So can you imagine going through 2 surgeries? Wouldn't you think at that point when you're hurting, your body's hurting and such, you'd be like, it would be a lot easier for you to be triggered, a lot easier for you to go through more difficulties, or to not be able to handle it. And it's not because you are terrible in your faith. It's more because you have that thing that you're going through. Like it's kind of like that thing. Remember what Sunsteam talked about in the past? And I told you guys about this, where Sunsteam said the reason why Jesus healed people first is if you don't solve their that big problem that they're facing right now, then what happens? Well, if you don't solve that problem, then they can't listen to the words well. And if you think about it, sometimes it's not actually your faith that's struggling, your faith that's going through this or that. It's because, sometimes you have this problem right in front of you. Sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's physical, where you're really, really sick. And that's going to cause you a lot of pain. Think about it. If you constantly have a headache, don't you think that you would react in a bad way to what people say to you? And when you're normally healthy, you would be completely okay with what this person said to you. But what you realize is because, you're sick, you're hurting, your body's aching. That plays a big role. And I think, sometimes when we've done something for a long time, and then, later we get a little bit sick from it, there's 2 ways we can react. And I would say both are fine. It depends on the will. Sometimes you just need to take a break, right? You need to recover. Like as long as your body's sick, you're going to have a hard time. So you need to recover. So some people just need that rest. They need that recovery time. And some people need what? Some people need rest and recovery. And some people, they need to reach a new level. Do you know what I mean? And it's true. Sometimes people are going through something. They're going through something really, really difficult and hard. And the biggest thing that God wants from them right at that moment is what? Is to overcome and reach a new level. Right? Yeah, some people, it's kind of like, my example is when it comes to cancer, Sunsteam says, sometimes you need prayer and sometimes you need medicine from doctors. It really depends. And we have to realize too is, in our lives also, sometimes you need that spiritual thing to help you to overcome. And sometimes you just need that rest. Sometimes you just need that physical thing to help you to overcome the thing that you're going through at that time too. And I think one thing that we have to realize about and recognize about ourselves is, a lot of times I do believe that, just like when you haven't slept for 2 days, you're going to be really irritable. It's just normal. If you've gone through something where you're, if you haven't eaten in 4 or 5 days or like even a day, you're going to be irritable. Not because you have a bad character, not because you have terrible faith, but it's because you're hungry. It's because you're thirsty. It's because of these things. And that's one of the parts that we have to recognize is it's our body. Our body is the thing that causes us to go through those, go through these different cycles of emotions because we're living with the physical body, right? So one of the things that makes me think about is when during the rapture time, some people said that when you rapture, it's like an orange and the peel is left behind and only the fruit goes up, right? That's what the rapture is, which means that, think about this. One thing Sazim said is if you don't have the body, you don't get hungry, you don't get tired, you don't get sleepy, you don't have lust, you don't have all those other different things, which is huge because those are the things that drive us, right, towards sin. They drive us towards getting angry. It drives us towards doing bad things to each other. But when we realize it, it's like, wow, imagine you got rid of that. You would never be hangry. You would never be tired. You would never have those types of stresses that are bothering you. You would be the core of yourself. And the kindness, the love, the wisdom, all those things will come out because you're not dealing with those physical things too. I was thinking about this even more. I was like, yeah, this is why we're going through different things in our, this is kind of why we're here on this earth. We're here on this earth to make ourselves, to develop ourselves. And we're going to go through very difficult times. We're going to go through things to train and raise us, to help us realize and recognize about ourselves once again. And if we don't recognize this, then we're just going to look at ourselves as terrible people, and then all you're going to have is just absolute guilt and nothing else. You think that God doesn't want to use you. You don't think that you're qualified for anything. But the reality is, yeah, we make the mistakes and this and that, but the reality of all the things that we go through and all the things that we need to understand is that this is the training ground. This is the place where we develop. And it's real because it's the world we live in and we can make irreversible mistakes. We can, right? But the thing we have to understand very, very carefully is that God is not expecting us to never make a mistake. God is expecting us to not make the same mistake over and over and over and over again. Even for me, I was thinking about myself for the last 3-4 months. I'm like, man, I've made the same mistake 4 times, right? And of course, it's it's in a different spans and periods of time, but I'm still God, how come I can't, what do I need to do to get over this? What do I need to do to really understand this a lot better, right? And what God said resurrection is to be better than you were before. And for some things, Sunseem is no, for some things, it doesn't mean that you stop it altogether, right? Getting angry at someone, we all have emotions. Getting angry at someone for the wrong reason, yeah, it's going to happen. But Sunseem's what is resurrection? Resurrection is if you're someone that gets triggered and you get angry or mad at someone within 5 seconds, that's kind of who you are. But the next time if you get mad at someone in 7 seconds, that means you've resurrected. You're better than you were before. You've basically made yourself 2 seconds better. And that's something you have to look at and say, oh, that is resurrection itself, right? We have to look at ourselves and we have to understand ourselves in such a way that the number one thing that matters to us is growth, development and growth. It's just like sports. We need to develop and grow. We have to make one more shot. We have to, get one more point. We have to be those that can run that much longer or faster. There's a lot of different things that we have to look at and say, yeah, we're here to develop. We're going to make the mistakes. Just don't make the mistake at the same level. raise your level. So even if that same mistake is made, it is done at a higher level where it took a minute before, now it takes 2, now it takes 4, now it takes 6, now it takes 7, right? Like that's our development and raising of ourselves that we need to do. And I hope it's something that we can really, really understand about our time here on this earth, that it is temporary, it is super important, but it is here for development. And the best analogy Sansim gives is what? The best analogy Sansim gives is when he gives that, the miniaturization and magnification of a pregnant woman. Like a pregnant woman is at the bottom level, like at the miniaturized level. And basically it's just, you cannot see the baby. It's in the stomach. And it's in the stomach. And everything is developed in a hidden way where you can't see the development, but it's growing in the stomach. Everyone knows it's growing and developing. And then once it comes out, then for the 9 months is going to be in the stomach, but it's going to, with that preparation and the development, it'll live for 90 years, right? And you're like, whoa, that's pretty crazy when you think about that. But when you take it to another step further is, when you look at the world, what is the world? The world is also a womb, right? And even think about our spirits. Our spirits are in the womb of our body. It is developing and being made, and we can't see the spirit. Just like when a baby's being developed, you can't see in the stomach, right? And since you can't see in the stomach, you're just kind of like, oh, okay, it's like, it looks like something's growing there. And here in this world, I think one of the most discouraging parts about growing and developing is, like, you can't see your spirit. You don't know if it's developing. You don't know if it's growing. And sometimes you just feel like it's like you just never really got anywhere. But the reality is, no, you have. You have gotten somewhere. It is something that's really, really amazing too, right? So I remember this analogy that Sansim gave. And Sansim said, in life, it's basically climbing mountains. You're always on this uphill battle, right? So what happens is you climb your first mountain, but when you reach that mountain, you're satisfied because you reach the top of the mountain. You take a deep breath of that fresh air, but then you look over and you see a higher mountain with a higher peak, and you're like, whoa, I got to conquer that. So now you got to climb a new mountain. But one of the things Sansim said is, one of the hardest parts we're going to go through is that when you realize that in order to climb the next mountain, you have to climb down the mountain you are on right now. And that in itself is a humbling experience. It's humbling because you got to go back down, right? And so it seems like this is when people really struggle. They struggle because they go back down the mountain and they almost feel like they didn't change. They're at the same position they were before. But some seems like, no, but you came down the mountain to climb a bigger mountain, right? And you can't just you can't just jump to the next mountain and start from that point. You got to go down the mountain. And it's like one of those humbling experiences where you need to realize, like you really, really need to realize that everything you've learned or all the things that you've gone through for that first mountain, you got to let go of it before you move on to the next mountain, right? All the thoughts you looked at and, oh, this is how I climbed the mountain here. This is how, no. When you go to a bigger mountain, you might have different cliffs. It might be steeper. You might have other different things. And you have to kind of let go of your thoughts so that you can reach a new level. Because as long as you keep the thoughts of that first mountain, you're not going to be able to climb the next mountain, right? So, it's one of the hard parts that we do go through is when we head back down the mountain. It's part of the process. You go back down and you start to climb a new mountain. And when you go back down the mountain, you kind of feel to yourself like, man, I didn't really change at all. Oh, what have I done with my life here in Providence? And that's kind of a lot of people do go through that. And I do think for us too, as we mature and grow older in this history, and that's one of the harder parts is, we're a little bit more stubborn. We're a little bit more hardened, And we need to keep ourselves fresh so that we are always humble and always looking for something better and always looking for something, always looking to become better and opening our hearts and being humble so that we can learn more and more new things. Right. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that I just had some really good conversations and topics. And I'm really, really hoping that, all of us can have these types of times to share and to be able to talk with each other about these things too. Either way. All right. So, that is segment number 1. We're only going to have 2 segments today because, we're only going to have 2 segments today. So we'll have the Wednesday message word study, and then right after that, we're going to go into, then we're going to end it after that. So let's get into the first music break of the day.
When I look at you, it's like I got the whole room on the tip of my finger, and I'm pointing it right back to you. When I look at you, it's like I got the whole universe, the whole universe. Never thought that living could be easy, so you taught me right from wrong. Now I'm free to be full of love, full of hope. I'm empty of all things. I'm living to make everyone come follow me. This is a life worth living that I know. If I love someone else, what would he give me though? It's like I'm floating on clouds, my feet don't touch the ground. Life with you is like heaven, look at what I found. You said believe in me, don't change, and then you'll see a life that lasts for all eternity. And I will never live to have any regrets. I know you're the best, I'll step to the west, I'll follow behind you step by step. Just like the stars above, we shining, shining. Look at the world, in my hands the universe is mine. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. Just like the stars above, we shining, shining. Look at the world, in my hands the universe is mine. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. When I look at you, it's like I got the whole room on the tip of my finger, and I'm pointing it right back to you. When I look at you, it's like I got the whole universe, the whole universe. You said believe in me, don't change, and then you'll see a life that lasts for all eternity. And I will never live to have any regrets. I know you're the best, I'll step to the west, I'll follow behind you step by step. Just like the stars above, we shining, shining. Look at the world, in my hands the universe is mine. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. Just like the stars above, we shining, shining. Look at the world, in my hands the universe is mine. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. It's yours, can't escape from the love, it's yours. When I look at you, it's like I got the whole room on the tip of my finger, and I'm pointing it right back to you. When I look at you, it's like I got the whole universe, 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 the whole universe.
All right, so let's get into the second segment for today, which is the Wednesday message word study with 2 new titles. The first being Learn from Me, and also Live While Learning and Making Corrections This Way. The main scriptures is Matthew 5:48, very, very famous. Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect, right? So, this is about learning and learning from the right person. And I like right off the bat, when you look in the intro, it says you can get out of ignorant faith only if you learn from the Trinity, the Lord and the one God sent for the time period. However, if you forget it, even though you have escaped it, there is no use. And I like this because it kind of talks to us as in we've escaped it because we've learned from the one who came in this time period. But if you forget it, you're the same. And this is one of the reasons why Sunseam and like the word is always given to us and repeated. One of the reasons Sunseam told us that the reason why some of the messages are repeated is because we don't do it. Like we need to hear it again because we've forgotten it. And if you forget, it's like it's that famous proverb, if you forget, you will die. And a lot of times we just forget the whole reason why something is happening, or we forget the word where it gives us an answer, where the seals are broken and we're like, oh, this is why. But since we don't think about it after that, we forget and we end up in the same position we were before, right? So I like that very beginning point is like, yeah, it's for us in Providence. A lot of times we just don't, we just forget and we suffer because of the things that we forget. And here is, in another part of the message is like, even though God loved you a lot through people, healed your diseases, fed you and blessed you, if you forget it, you will live a life that has nothing to do with God. Therefore, things need to be continually talked about to help people not forget the past, but live with the revived faith in the present too. And this is why we need testimony. This is why we need something to repeat the word, right? To remind us, right? This is why we need people to tell us the amazing miracles and stories that happened in the past, because it revives us and says, oh, I remember that. And a lot of times, guys, we just don't testify enough that, like one of the things I think many people understand, those that testify a lot, I think we can all say that when you testify, you receive strength. It's like you go through that same thing over and over again. And it's something that we need to recognize and realize really well too, is that we're all going through these types of things. And we can't forget of all the things that God has done for us, or else we end up in that same position where we just kind of, leave God, like we leave God even though he's done so much for us. Guys, I think in the last 2 weeks, since he talked about the hallucination, the hallucination faith that becomes because you become crazy. And he's like, remember when he says like, it's worse than doing drugs. And it's because one of the examples Sunseam gave was is like, people would rather believe that Jesus comes in the body. Like they would rather believe that because it's so flashy. And he says like people like this are worse than those that take drugs because they're kind of just excited by themselves. And Sunseam said it's narcotic faith. That's crazy. Narcotic faith. That's what it's like to have to be on drugs with your faith. And what does that mean? Well, being on drugs with your faith is being in the position where you keep telling yourself something and you want to believe something so badly that, that you're excited by that. Oh, we're going to fly into the clouds. We're going to fly into the clouds where, our body's going to come back to life. And we want these exciting and miraculous things. And we think those are the things that are actually going, like it becomes our drug, that hope for something that is so like fantastic, right? There's another part I liked. It says, even though they themselves have led a life of ignorant faith, they say the Bible is not fulfilled, and some even crumble their faith. So then how great it is to live knowing we are living with the solid truth. And that's a huge amen. Because, if one of the problems that we might have is if you don't go out to meet people, if you don't go out to evangelize, you won't, you're going to forget how people actually believe in the Bible. Like the way they think, the way they are. And the crazy part to this is what? If you don't really realize this, then what happens is, one second, just grab this one point here, right? So, what we have to realize is we don't realize how great it is to be in this history. like living with absolute truth, living with 100%, like we know what the Bible is saying, like the key points of the Bible and such. Sometimes we forget because we don't talk to the people who are believing in the other way. And you're like, whoa, people actually believe like that. And that's, it makes us forget about how great the history we live in right now, right? And there are other points in the message about, with our faith, we have to correct our faith constantly. Leading a life of faith, correcting it constantly. Just like an artist completes a painting, or just like how Sunseem completed Wonderstone, right? And this is, if we want to fix our faith, God is like, that's why God is always giving us the word. It's through the word that we're fixed. So we have to make corrections while growing. And we have to know that we should correct things immediately with the word as the standard, right? Fix what needs to be fixed and only do good things at a higher level, right? We have to fix those things constantly. And, this part of how our faith is, if we don't fix it, we're stuck. And it's kind of like what I was talking about in the first segment. Sometimes we're trying to fix ourselves. We're going through these difficult things, but we have to realize that we're here to develop and make ourselves so that when the time comes, we'll be ready for heaven, and we'll be ready in such a better way, right? That's one of the big things that we have to realize. So, this time we have here, it's such a blessed time because it is a time to prepare. It is not the end, which I'm so thankful to, because can you imagine all the mistakes we've made? And can you imagine this was the end and there's nothing that else comes after this? Then we're stuck with those mistakes and we're stuck with those things for the rest of our life, right? So I hope that we should be those that we have to make our faith, right? And even the message said plan in advance, right? And then practice before you actually do it, right? So don't just listen to the word. You have to listen to the word and you have to plan what you're going to do in advance. Then practice it before you actually do it. And then third, the last thing Sunseem said is correct while doing it. And this is how you perfect yourself. You don't perfect yourself by perfecting yourself before everything is done. No, because you're not going to know exactly how. You perfect yourself on the way. It's part of the process, right? Oh, and this is why, this is not just this week's Wednesday message, but we've heard it so many times. Always check yourself. Take inventory, right? This is when you see your errors. This is when you see your contradictions. This is when you see the things that you failed at and you can do better with, right? So we have to correct by praying and correcting one by one. And if we don't correct it, then we'll take a path that's not good. And then the enemies, the opponents will all find fault with us too, right? So one thing that Sunseem said to take note in is with your contradictions is sometimes you can't clearly recognize it, right? But Sunseem said that you can't clearly recognize it when your level is low, right? Which means in that case, someone else who has experienced it notices the errors better, right? So if your level is low, you can't see all the problems and difficulties. However, you will be able to see it, or other people who are at a higher level will be able to see your contradictions. And don't look at that as a negative. Look at it as a positive. Like, yeah, that's so true. I got to work on this better and do better here. And that's why you need good, trusted people around you. Like, I've heard some horror stories where like the Sunday message. Like, can you imagine this? Imagine the Sunday message. Remember the Sunday message like 2 months ago? Sunday's like, hey, I know what's going on. If you have sexual sin, you better step down right now, kind of thing, right? And then imagine someone comes up to you and says, oh, you should step down. You got problems. Like, that is not the way. Like, that's a horror story right there. We have to be those that have good, trusted people around us too, right? And, I think one of the things that makes it really hard for us to change is when we make mistakes, we get hurt. We face more problems, or sometimes people even die, right? And, there's something that we have to think about is sometimes, we go through pain and suffering because of our own mistakes. And that makes us not want to try again or get up again, but we have to get up. Or we got to get up, right? So, Then the right after this, it seems like, illusions happen with your eyes, but also happens with your heart, right? So if you like a certain object, you will have an illusion if you're excited, and you'll have an illusion if you're addicted to something. There are so many mistakes in the heart and perception. You must be careful on your own, right? We have to understand ourselves that much better. And sometimes we have to understand there's an illusion going on in our heart where something is not what we thought it was. And we have to be that much better about this too, right? Like Sensi talked about this when, like competency of knowing certain things. Like when Sensi talked about pine trees, and in the beginning, because his level was so low, he would buy tons of trees. But later he'd realize more and more that, oh, it's just an illusion, right? And he doesn't want to be deceived in the future by buying bad trees. So he has to raise his level in order for him to understand the contradictions too, right? So, there's this one part in the message that it really, like, it's a scary part for me. Like, just for me, sometimes it's like, only through experiencing harm do we realize piercingly, and afterward will we do well continually on our own. Only after we like the Lord comes and checks on us, kind of thing, right? Or like, whoa, we shouldn't be doing like this. But once we experience the harm, then we're like, I'm never doing that again, right? Like one part Sanseem said is, if you have suffered a serious loss to the point you feel cutting pain in your bones, and if you've gone through injustice, now that you know it through the experience, I urge you not to do those things at all. If you do them again, you will end up living the life of hell until the end of your life, right? Yeah, it's like, it's something that I think it's such a key thing that we have to listen to. It's like, whoa, right? That's something that we do have to be very, very keen about, right? If we've suffered cutting pain for the mistakes that we made, right? But now that we know it, don't do it again, right? What about that video? That first video, somebody's like, yeah, if you get bitten by a snake, do you forgive the snake? Do you continue to raise it? It's like, no. First wisdom is to not encounter it ever again. Second wisdom is not to raise it again. Third wisdom is to take care of your problem so that it will not be able to bite you again or anyone else either, right? So, there's one part that really made me think deeply. It says, when Sasi said, don't leave your own position. Don't leave your position. Meaning, when you're trying to save someone, you may fall into their trap and sin, and for that, become a subject of criticism. The world will not perceive your situation as a sacrifice for saving lives. Instead, people in the world, like animals, will only view it from their own level and criticize and slander you. And that's a sad thing. Because, obviously, we can tell why Sunseem's talking about this, but it's so sad to hear it like that from Sunseem, right? And Sunseem's like, just give the words of life. Holy Spirit will work on the lives through inspiration. We need to let them acquire their salvation on their own, right? And then Sunseem's like, as for those that fell into a trap, save them like this. Buy a rope, tie it from outside, just let them down the rope into the trap and then quickly leave. Do not meet them or accept their words of praise. If you meet them, they will follow you around, saying they want to repay your grace. While doing that, they will cause a problem. If you keep your position, right? So don't lose your position because someone is dying, but help them and go on your way. Nobody will be able to climb up because it's too high. Everyone, you must go on fulfilling God's will in your own position. We got to know our own position, guys, right? So here's the last thing that I put notes on for the Wednesday message. It says that now that you've discerned the situations by hearing today's word, everyone, you should take action according to the word every day. The reason I write definitely like this and deliver to you, because I'm afraid that you'll be deceived again and suffer because of them again. The word is life and God's revelation. Therefore, you must keep the word and act on it. For those who take action knowing, heaven will be fulfilled. For those who take action not knowing, the consequence will be the torment of hell coming upon them. That is why when chosen people return to God's arms, God continually teaches them the truth through the Savior and enables them to become perfect. Knowledge is power. God enables you to walk the path of life, right? So, I hope that we can take that message to heart, learn from the one that God has sent, and I hope that we can, as the message says, don't just, the best way to correct is to do things on the way. So you're learning something on the go, and you're going to make mistakes and learn it from that, right? So, we have to learn and correct ourselves through doing things and seeing how we do those things too, so that we can make ourselves even better. Either way, okay? So there it is, guys. That is the Wednesday Message Word Study. It is the last portion for today's podcast. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. So without further ado, let's get into actually, I think that's it. Yeah, there's no until the end today. So guys, hope you guys have an amazing and awesome day, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the passion. Nobody can stop me when I'm like this. I got my head in the zone,